Hi Radhika, hi Sarah.
Hi.
Hi.
Great to have you with us. I'll start by asking you, Sarah, since you're the producer, screenplay writer, and actor on A Call to Spy, how did the idea of transforming the story of the lives of these three women, Virginia Hall, Noor Inayat Khan, and Vera Atkins, into a film come about?
Sure. Thank you for that. So, as a filmmaker, I always actually start with the genre, believe it or not, that I think is commercial. So, my last film was a Wall Street film, but then I look at it with a female lens and an independent film lens and what stories haven't been told. So, with this, I knew I wanted to do a spy film. I mean, I love James Bond, who doesn't? But when you look at spy films and women are involved more often than not, even when they're resistance fighters, it's a romance, a la kind of Charlotte Gray. So I started digging into the research. I'd studied World War II in college, and I knew about Churchill's secret army, and there were women. And that's really where it started. And then when I uncovered these three women, Noor, Vera, and Virginia, who were firsts in their fields and pioneers, and that no film had ever been made about them, that was the aha moment that this has to be done.
Okay. And about the casting, if you were a part of it, how did you zero in on Radhika?
So it's a funny story. I was actually interviewing lots of women directors, and I wanted to interview directors everywhere. And Lena Yadav was one of the directors that was in the mix, and scheduling didn't work. But that's how I came across Radhika, because I watched Lena's film Parched, and I fell in love with Radhika. And when we went to cast the role, it was very important to me and Lydia Dean Pilcher, our director, that Noor was authentic, and that we hired an actress who could portray her legacy in a beautiful way. And when I mentioned Radhika's name, Lydia also knew Radhika. She'd given her an award. And so it was like kismet. We agreed right away. We made Radhika the first offer. She said yes. And honestly, for those of you who haven't seen the film, you have to see it just for her performance.
Okay, looking forward to that. Radhika, when you were approached for the film and you were briefed about who you were supposed to play, it's at the time when you started reading up about and getting to know about who Noor Inayat Khan was?
Very honestly, yes. I mean, of course, I'd heard of her before, but I did not know so much. And it was only because of this film that actually I read so much about her, did all my research, and found out what an incredible woman she was. But it's all thanks to the film.
Okay. Now, Sarah, just coming to the point that as a producer and also as a writer, what went into recreating the 1940s? Of course, hiring a production designer is half the battle won, but you also have to understand the era, learn or unlearn things about what happened then, the position of women, for example, or how they were treated, the whole cultural dynamics of that era. It must have taken a lot of reading and researching.
Yeah, I mean, I did 4 years of research, and I was lucky enough to have the spy files. The CIA spoke to me. I spoke with whatever family and living relatives I could reach. But then, and above and beyond that, when you bring on your team, our director, our production designer, Kim Jennings, who is incredible, they add to the research and bring even more. We shot this film in Philadelphia and Budapest, not in London and France, only because for reasons of economy, we're an independent film. We couldn't afford to do London and France. And so there had to be a ton of research that went into finding the right locations in the different places. But it didn't really work in the end.
Okay. Radhika, I could ask you, from what I read about Noor Inayat Khan, from whatever little I could read, she was brought up on principles of nonviolence and Gandhiji's teachings. And yet she had to go on this dangerous mission in which she was trained to even take a person's life if needed. In your understanding, how does she come to terms with these two contradictory parts of herself?
I think at that time, this is just my understanding, of course. At that time, I think she was a pacifist. She always was a pacifist. And even though she was trained to kill, she didn't do it. In the sense, she decided not to be a part of it. It was also impossible. What was at that time wasn't a choice. It was a situation. And the choice was what can you do? Are you going to do anything, or you're not going to do anything? Now, in spite of being a does being a pacifist mean not participate in any way to actually help your own people? That's not what the choice is either. So she, I think, chose a middle ground where she participated in order to not kill, but in order to save and help. And she had her own set of principles where she just did not cross the line, I think. I think that's my understanding of her trying to, and it's a dilemma. It is a dilemma, because it's not a choice at that point. There's war happening, and what are you going to do? Sit and do nothing about it? It's also impossible.
Right. This question is for both of you, actually, because what we see in a lot of popular culture, see or read in a lot of popular culture, when you talk about a spy, the image of a spy is somebody who's, highly trained, confident, motivated, who just goes out there and gets the job done against all odds, is hugely patriotic. Whereas in reality, they are as human as any one of us. They could be underconfident, they could be insecure, they could be unsure of what they're doing at many points in time. And they could probably be doing it because of the circumstances in which they are. Is that something that you also came across while you were researching for it, or Radhika, while you were thinking about who Noor could have been and where could she be coming from?
Do you want to take it, Sarah?
Sure. I mean, definitely, these women, all of them, were civilians, they were quote unquote ordinary women who became these extraordinary heroes. I'll let Radhika talk about Noor, but Virginia Hall, the character I play, was a disabled woman. She had a wooden leg, and she overcame that to become the spy the Nazis dubbed the most dangerous of all. But they had limited training. I mean, they were some of them were taught to kill, but their training wasn't MI16 or James Bond. They were thrown into the field with a 6-week survival rate, and they were ordinary people like you and me, and they said yes. Radhika, if you want to talk on Noor.
No, I think the same thing with the pacifist. I mean, the previous answer sort of, I would join that, because I mean, what you see in films is not real at all. They're human beings. They're scared. They're afraid. They're constantly, their lives at stake. Their family, all of this is at stake. There are circumstances which also make people do what they do, as you said. So I think there's always a question of right or wrong, morality, ethics, all of these questions, they're constantly there, and they're battling with it. That's why there's so much trauma associated with this particular, I don't even know if you call it field. in this context, it's not even a field.
Well, and actually, to build off that, I did a panel with the CIA personnel, because my character was the first woman to work for the CIA after the war. And they actually said, their historian, that this was the most realistic movie they'd seen from Hollywood of a spy film, because of the reasons you mentioned. It's not necessarily all blow-ups and gun battles, etc. These are just ordinary people doing their spy thing, and they're scared.
Okay. Now, my last question again to both of you is, when A Call to Spy released in theaters last year, it got good reviews. There were festival screenings as well. It got awards. It's got 94% audience rating on Rotten Tomatoes, which is brilliant, excellent. Could you share with us some of the more personal and memorable reactions that you've got for the film or for your role? Something that perhaps left an impression on you. Sarah.
I have one. We screened in Canada, where we won the Audience Choice Award before the shutdown, and I got a note from a viewer, and it was actually more poetic than I'm going to say, but the essence was, my grandmother was at a concentration camp. She was led to the pit with 2 women, arm in arm, before she was shot. I heard her voice in your movie. Thank you. And that has kind of driven me to kind of keep promoting this movie and keep driving it for people to see it, because it's an important story about courage, and real people who had courage. And we should never forget that.
Wow. Radhika?
I think I can't top that. Let's end with that.
But has anybody seen the film back home in India?
Not really, actually. That's also another thing. So I think after the 11th, probably I'll hear more things.
Okay. Thanks so much for joining us, and all the best for the film.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.